We'd like to welcome everyone today to our Centralina webinar series, and we're very excited that we have Carolina Caring, who has sponsored this webinar today, and would like to welcome both Amanda Buck and Kim Dowell for their willingness to present today, and we appreciate it. Today, we're going to be talking about comfort, care, and clarity, the difference between hospice and palliative care. So just kind of a couple quick notes before we get started. You are automatically muted and you cannot see the other participants. You will, however, be able to see the speakers and the hosts. And please, if you have any questions, put those into the chat box. We'll be managing those and answering those throughout the webinar today. This session is being recorded and will be available after the presentation today. And any available resources will be posted on our website at www.centralinaaging.org. So I'd like to take just a quick moment and introduce Amanda Buck, who is the Director of Community Engagement with Carolina Caring, and Kim Dowell, who is the Chaplain, Serious Illness with Carolina Caring. And both of them have been working in the aging industry for a number of years, and we have had the pleasure of working with them on various projects and opportunities. And thank you both for taking the time today to come and present with us. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda and Kim. They will be sharing their screen as we get started.
Yes, bear with me 1 second. If you want to go ahead and start them with the polling questions while I get my screen to pull up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, the first question, when you hear the word hospice, what comes to mind? I'll give you a few seconds before I end it. Got a lot of responses coming in, Amanda. Oh, looks like it's not showing me the answers. Sorry, little snafu with the poll. If you guys want to throw that in the chat, it might be a little bit easier. I apologize. Amanda, can you see all those answers coming through?
I do see them. That's awesome. And if we want to go ahead and move to when you hear the word palliative, just write palliative and put a space and then put what word comes to your mind on that. Spelling bee, I love it. I thank you guys for taking time to do that. And if you didn't get a chance to do it, just feel free to put that in the chat as we go along. Uh, I want to take time to just thank you guys as we are here today, just to be able to say thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. Um, you're taking an hour and a half out of your time today to meet with us today, and we do not take that lightly. Kim and I are super honored to be alongside you guys today to talk about the topic called comfort, care, and clarity, the difference between hospice and palliative care. What you're going to find throughout this journey with us today is the themes of comfort, care, and clarity will actually weave throughout hospice care and palliative. What you're going to find, though, is that there are some key differences. Before we get started on our topic, some of you may not even know who Carolina Caring is, so I want to take an opportunity to share with you who we are and the heart of why we do what we do, because we see the experiences people have had with palliative medicine and hospice care. We started humbly in the basement of a Presbyterian church 46 years ago when the philosophy of hospice care came from England to the United States. We were one of the first 3 hospices in North Carolina. When we started our humble beginnings in that basement of a Presbyterian church, we had 2 goals in mind at that point. We wanted end of life care to be quality of life for any persons that we were honored to serve. The second thing is that we never wanted to turn anybody away as the result of their cost of care. That philosophy of hospice has rung true for us for those 46 years, but we also understood that Carolina Caring, as a nonprofit, community-based, mission-driven healthcare organization, needed not only to support people in the hospice journey, but we needed to serve people upward stream with serious illness. I love to share this slide with you because it really helps paint a picture of where Carolina Caring is 46 years later, where we're not using just hospice care services to serve those with serious illness, but now we have a variety of programs that we're able to serve individuals. Caregiver Solutions is our newest program, and it is a home care program that is designed to help individuals with home care services when that caregiver may need a break. Now, that service program is more in our western part of the service area we cover, but I wanted to make mention of it. We also have a house calls program that is home-based primary care for individuals that find it too taxing for them to get back and forth to their primary care provider when they have a serious illness. Now, we're going to definitely talk about the palliative care and hospice care in more detail, so I won't go into details on that. So let's go down at the bottom where we see Carolina Caring and Cardinal Kids. This is our pediatric palliative and hospice care services that we serve individuals prenatally all the way to adulthood with palliative and hospice care services. I will make a note that there is a caveat with some of the information that I will share about hospice today, that pediatric hospice is a little different in that they receive concurrent care. And what that means is that they are able to receive curative treatments and hospice care services at the same time. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that when we're talking about it. When we go over to the right, we'll see under palliative and hospice care that we do have some specialized programs that help within those programs depending on the circumstance, such as cardiac care, lung care, and dementia care. So those individuals that have some of those diagnoses may be able to receive specialized care on an individual basis depending on if they're on palliative care or hospice care. The last part that I'm going to talk to you all about is the bereavement program. The bereavement program is a program that we are able to help support individuals regardless if they have received our care services before through Carolina Caring. It's a community-based program. So if someone has experienced a loss of a loved one and they need that extra bereavement support, we're able to support them. We're also excited to announce that the community counseling program is expanding, where we're going to be able to offer people in person and virtual mental health support to anyone in the community who has experienced a type of loss, not just loss of a loved one, but maybe some life transitions or job loss. There's more information to come about that in the future, but I did want to let you know that that's going to be available and we're going to be able to serve people with that, and we're honored to do that. You may wonder what counties we serve, because I'm not sure where all of you are from, but these are the counties that we serve. And we're not only finding ourselves in hospitals, nursing homes, assisted livings, but we're anywhere someone calls home. We also have palliative medicine offices throughout our footprint, but we typically serve people wherever they call home. I would be remiss if I did not mention that we do have 3 hospice houses that we're honored to serve people when and if hospice houses are in need for them. Those are located in Sherrills Ford, Newton, and in our Gaston County area in Dallas. So that is who Carolina Caring is, and we're honored to serve people alongside their serious illness journey. We recognize that serious illness can be a very tender, humbling time, maybe not something we've planned in our 20-year or 5-year plan, but it's something that people may experience. So we want to be able to help them in that journey. During that, I want to let you know the objectives of where we're going to meet today. We're going to talk about the differences between palliative and hospice care, understanding that comfort, clarity, and care are going to be woven throughout both of those programs and service lines. We're going to identify the palliative care triggers that may allow a person to be a recipient of palliative services, as well as hospice admission criteria. And we're going to discuss how palliative and hospice care fit into that healthcare continuum. So that's where we're going to be today. But I want to make sure that we talk about one thing that's underlying all of this. Your input is important to us, and we recognize that your experiences matter. Some of you may be coming from a professional journey where you've had multiple experiences with hospice and palliative medicine. Some of you may have also experienced personal journeys with that, or maybe going through it currently. Also, there are some of you who may be on the call who have had no experiences at all with either, and you're curious to understand. I want to recognize that we're all in different parts of the journey, and we're all going to have different experiences. So what I want you to do is just close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to take a deep breath in. I want you to take a deep breath out. And I want you to know that we're in this journey together. My hope is that we'll be able to answer a lot of questions that will be able to help. With an hour and a half, we certainly will not be able to go into the depths of everything, but to make sure that you really understand the key differences for that. At the end, I'm going to have my contact information, because in the hours, days, weeks, and months ahead, you may have questions that you want clarification on so that you can understand the care and the comfort that both of these provide. I want to make myself available to answer those questions, because I know this is an ongoing conversation that may not apply to you today, but may be able to apply to you in the future, and you may want more answers. I want you to know that I'm here for you on that. And as we go through this journey, we're going to be talking about some topics that are a little sensitive and may trigger some emotions in you. That's when I'm wanting you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. And just know that you're not alone in this journey, and we're here to help you navigate through this journey of understanding. So we talked about the polling questions through the chat, and I was able to see a lot of the different questions or different answers that we received. At the end, I'm going to hope that you will be willing to also do that chat again, because I want to see what differences this has made for you in order to understand the differences between palliative and hospice. Thank you so much for taking that opportunity just to share with us. So let's dive in. And the first thing I want to do is, some of you may cringe when I tell you this, but we're going to do a little grammar lesson on the word palliative. I want you to first think of palliative care as the adjective. Palliative means to cloak, conceal, or comfort. And we're going to focus on the word comfort right now. Palliative care as an adjective is supportive medical and nursing care that's focused on comfort, symptom management, and quality of life for a person that is experiencing a serious illness. So when an individual is on hospice care or palliative medicine, you may hear the word palliative care come up. The word palliative care was actually coined because people had such a negative connotation of what hospice looked like. So they started using the word palliative care to describe comfort care. So that may be why you hear the term hospice and palliative care sometimes. But that is an adjective to say that that is a form of supportive care. Palliative care is something that you receive as a result of being on hospice care or palliative medicine is comfort care. What we're going to be focusing on today is palliative care, the noun, which is also called palliative medicine. That is the medical consultation service for those that have serious progressive illness. Those things provide discussion of illness, prognosis, and care goals, symptom management, complex medical decision making, and advanced care planning. Now, we're going to go more in detail into all this, so I don't want you to concern yourself right now with the details of that. I just want to make you understand that when we're talking about palliative medicine or palliative care, as far as the consultative service, that is called palliative medicine. I will make a note right now that all palliative medicine programs are different. So I am going to try to give a general overview of what palliative medicine looks like. I'm a visual person, and you'll notice this throughout our journey today. But to help you quite understand this, I want to go over what's called the palliative care and hospice continuum. We're in flu season right now. We're doing this recording in January of 2026, and it's not been a very great year for flu. But typically, when people have the flu, what we find is that they're able to put their life on hold for a minute, get better, rest, take their medicine for symptom management, and run the course for the few days. And this is not what we're talking about. Oftentimes, people will be diagnosed with a chronic illness, maybe high blood pressure, diabetes, or those types of things. And as a result of their chronic illness, they may develop some serious illnesses. They may have congestive heart failure, COPD, a variety of different things. And that is where we're starting to talk about going from chronic illness to serious illness at that point of diagnosis. As those people have a diagnosis, really the focus is going to be on curative, disease-specific treatments that help them in the beginning of that journey. As we'll talk about later, palliative medicine can start at the point of diagnosis of that serious illness. But as the disease progresses, and think of that in the years as we go along over to the right, you will find that people are focusing less on the curative focus of the treatment because their disease has progressed, and more on what we call, again, the palliative focus, the comfort, the palliative care that they receive for the symptom management and the supportive treatments so that they can continue to live a quality of life. Now, we'll go over this chart several times later. I don't want you to get fixated on understanding all of it right now. But eventually, what we will find is a person will end up in a point where they make a decision if they want to receive hospice care services. At that point, when they receive hospice care services, there is some bereavement support, and we will talk about that later as well. Okay. Like I said, I'm a visual person. So since palliative medicine is the first part of that palliative and hospice care continuum, I want to give you this visual to look at. I want you to notice the parts of this wagon wheel. You have the center of the wagon wheel. You have the spokes of the wagon wheel. And then you have the circle that encompasses it. I want you to use this as a tool to help you remember how palliative medicine works. At the center in both hospice care and palliative medicine, the patient is what is important. Yes, they have situations with their disease that makes us concerned about what's the matter with their body. But we also know a person is just not their disease. They also have other parts of their life that's very important to them. So they'll have goals of care that are very, very important to them. So at the patient center, or the center of the wagon wheel, is the patient. What is important to them? What you will then see is their spokes of the wheel. And this is the levels of support that they will have as a result of their illness. They may have their friends and family that are caring for them. They'll have their primary care. They'll have their specialists, maybe home health or other community-based resources. They may have their houses of faith. Those spokes of the wheel, when someone is on palliative medicine, remained intact. They're still receiving their curative treatments, their medications, all of the supportive services around them. None of that changes. What happens is when the palliative medicine team comes around them, they're a consultative service, not to replace the treatment that they receive from their specialist, but rather to help them have that extended amount of time to talk about what does my disease look like, getting that complex information and education. Discussion of the illness, of what is going to happen with their illness and the progression of that. Understanding as their disease progresses, what does hospice look like? And is that an avenue that I want to explore? And as I've mentioned, palliative medicine programs are different. So from a Carolina Caring standpoint, there may be other supportive services within that palliative medicine team, such as a social worker, spiritual support, dementia care, cardiac care, those specialized programs. But the point is an extra set of eyes and ears for that palliative medicine provider to sit down with a person, not just 10 minutes, but an extended amount of time to really go over all of these things to them. Not just what's the matter with their body that they're learning from the specialist, but what matters to them as far as quality of care. If you don't remember anything else I say about palliative medicine, please remember that patients can still receive all treatments and curative measures when utilizing palliative medicine services. I won't belabor this slide, but there are some common conditions that we see within palliative medicine, but this is not an all-inclusive list. These are some of the things that people will find that when they have a point of diagnosis, that is maybe an overwhelming time for them, confusing and scary, and they need those extra layers of support. We want to be able to offer palliative medicine services and providers as an option for those individuals to be able to receive the benefits that palliative medicine offers. You may want to know, well, when in the world do we really get palliative medicine involved? You may find when that person gets that serious illness diagnosis, or maybe that diagnosis really and that condition starts worsening. When they're receiving active treatment and they need some navigation through that. Maybe their side effects from treatment become uncontrolled and they really need help with that. Maybe they've gotten home health involved, and that's a great partnership to be able to have home health and palliative medicine together. Maybe they're having frequent emergency room visits or hospital admissions. Maybe they're starting to show some decline in their activities of daily living, their function and nutrition, and quality of life is just looking a tad bit differently for them than it has been in years past. Maybe they need symptom management, not just with what's physically going on with their body, but maybe what's going on mentally and spiritually for them. It may be that they're hospice eligible, but maybe based on their personal beliefs or opinions, maybe they're fearful of that and do not want to choose hospice as an option. Or maybe they're still wanting to seek aggressive treatment. Or maybe they're having difficulty just navigating the complexities of the healthcare system to be able to understand all those complex medical decision making. These are some ways to think maybe a referral for palliative medicine would be appropriate, and we can get the doctor's order to make that assessment. I will want to make and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, not all palliative medicine organizations are created equally. So there are some various service models examples that maybe when you're looking at palliative medicine, you ask if they have these availabilities. With full disclosure, this is along the lines of what our palliative medicine program provides. A medical team of nurse practitioners and care management with extended visit times with people, not just 10 minutes, but longer, and 24/7 phone access when they have exacerbations of their care. Also, whole person care, looking at not just what's the matter with the body, but what matters to them physically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. Maybe when doing that co-management with a primary care physician and specialist, just to make sure that patient's on the same page of understanding everything. Symptom management, that personalized goals of care. It may be that they are able to receive telehealth visits, clinics, and then home visits available for patients that it's too taxing for them to get back and forth to the palliative clinic. making sure that they are understanding that complex medical decision, making and advanced care planning, and as well as that is referrals for specialists, home health services, durable medical equipment, and medications when those are important for people. As you'll see, there's a lot of benefits of community-based palliative medicine. You'll find that patients feel like they're getting better care because they're empowered to understand what is going on with them in their body, but also being able to make those decisions and have the knowledge. You'll find that there's less costly visits to the ER, and I'll say not costly just in finances, but emotionally and how that impacts people. Having that 24/7 on-call support can be so important to avoid those unnecessary ED visits. Having that improved quality of life, and the patient gets more satisfied with focusing on what's important to them. They're able to understand what treatments are available and what is beneficial and what's not. They're able to spend more time at home and less time in the hospital, or more time where they would have importance in their life outside of their home. And as a result, you'll find providers are more satisfied with that because they are able to spend that quality of time with them with that 10 or 15 minutes they may get to really focus in on the treatments and those types of things. Kim, you have had some serious illness journeys of working with individuals with palliative medicine. I would love for you to take some time to talk to us now about some of the stories that you have experienced. So I'm going to let you take this on and introduce yourself and tell about some stories.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. I am so thankful to have the opportunity to talk about two programs that are near and dear to my heart. I joined the Carolina Caring Team in January of 1991 to serve as a chaplain for hospice. That was my role for over 30 years until March of last year when I became the chaplain for our palliative care and house calls programs. And I just want to make a point that not every person chooses to have spiritual support in their palliative care journey, but our Carolina Caring Team has chosen to make that available for folks. To paint a picture of who we serve and what that care is all about, I do have a few short stories that highlight palliative care, and then a little later I'll share some hospice stories. Because I'm a chaplain, there is an emphasis on the spiritual care component. Even though a number of these stories include references to God and faith, I do strive to respect the beliefs and point of view of those I serve without any agenda. The hope is that each person has an opportunity to be seen, heard, and affirmed, no matter where they are on their illness journey and on their spiritual journey. I have changed the names and details of the stories where needed to protect privacy. First, I will introduce you to Fran. The palliative care nurse practitioner had been caring for Fran for a while. Fran had Parkinson's and was getting regular assessments from our nurse practitioner for symptoms related to the disease. During her appointment at the palliative clinic, Fran's physical condition was found to be mostly stable, but her family was concerned because she seemed a little depressed. The nurse practitioner offered to have a chaplain reach out to Fran for spiritual care, and she agreed. As I got to know Fran, I learned that because of the changes in her strength and mobility, she, of course, couldn't do what she used to do and felt like she was letting people down. She said, "I don't know how to take care of my family anymore. I can't fully be a part of my own life." I listened to Fran describe her loss and helped her understand that we can grieve not just the loss of a person, but also the loss of our sense of purpose. I encouraged her to remember her value as someone who can still love her family well through her presence and her genuine interest in them. Because she was a person of faith, we prayed for God's comfort through her grief and for God to help Fran recognize the important ways she is still able to show up for her family. And then there's Jerry. Jerry was being seen at home by our nurse practitioner, who was providing symptom management for him while he waited for an organ transplant. The nurse practitioner made a referral for spiritual care when Jerry found out he was no longer a candidate for the transplant. He was devastated and wondering where to turn. He didn't know how to cope with the news because for years he believed a transplant was going to save his life. Jerry shared his disappointment with me, describing the details of his journey and the heartbreak of coming to what he called the end of the road. As we talked, Jerry began to recognize the ways that hope can change. He told me about the people who love and support him and the faith that gives him strength. I had the opportunity to explain hospice services too, so that Jerry knows he can still have Carolina Caring through the hospice program as his condition progresses and when he feels ready. Next, we have Joanne. Joanne was advanced in age, but still living on her own. She had a wonderful support system from her family and the community. Our social worker connected her with Meals on Wheels, and the nurse practitioner visited her at home. Due to some overall decline and a fall, the family decided it was time for Joanne to move to assisted living. Joanne and I had an established relationship through palliative care, so her son asked me to make a visit and talk with Joanne about the move. Joanne was open to sharing her feelings. Not surprisingly, she expressed anxiety and sadness. Because of the stories Joanne had told me about her life, I was able to remind her of how she faced challenges in the past and encourage her to remember her strengths. Joanne named for me adaptability and perseverance as two of her best gifts, gifts that had seen her through many uncertainties and many life changes. I saw a light begin to dawn in Joanne's face as she started expressing a more hopeful frame of mind. She asked that we pray for God to help her adjust with grace and gratitude. And finally, Harold. Harold saw our palliative care nurse practitioner due to his cancer diagnosis. He had been through rigorous chemotherapy and was considered cancer-free. He was about to begin immunotherapy. He and the nurse practitioner were focusing now on his crippling anxiety. Some days he felt completely overwhelmed just thinking about getting out of bed. Finding the correct medication for him was a top priority, but a referral was also made for spiritual care. As Harold and I talked about what he had been through, he said, "I know God wants me to be happy. I'm cancer-free. I don't want to disappoint God by not being happy. It makes me seem ungrateful." I encouraged Harold to show himself grace and gentleness during this continuing recovery. I reminded him that his body had been through a traumatic treatment process. I told him, being cancer-free doesn't erase all that you've been through. Harold said, "I guess it just takes time to heal." I reminded him that his palliative care team will be there for him as long as his symptoms and his needs persist. We also considered new language for his journey. Maybe Harold could just let himself be rather than pressure himself to be happy.
Kim, thank you so much for giving us those stories, and I'm thankful that you were able to capture a picture of what that looks like. So, as promised, I said that we would go back over this hospice and palliative care continuum, and what we've just talked about is the palliative medicine component. Whereas time goes along, we may not be looking at curative focus as much. As time goes on, we may be looking at palliative focus. But at the beginning, people need that support while they're going through the journey. We're now going to transition over to hospice. And as we were first discussing palliative, we looked at this chart. So let's look at it once again when we start talking about the hospice journey. Once the disease is progressing, the person may find that the doctor is saying, we've done all that we can do at this point. The patient may find that those treatments are no longer providing the quality of life that they're looking for. And if they're on palliative medicine, they've received the option to understand about the discussion on the progression of their illness and when the timing may be right to discuss with their provider about hospice services. The person may want to be assessed for hospice, and this is where you're going to find that hospice care and palliative medicine are different. All of them are talking about comfort for the person, clarity of understanding where they are in their illness and what quality of life looks like for them, and the care that they're receiving. But hospice patients have made a decision, the adults, remember we talked about the children, but the hospice patients who are adults have made a choice to discontinue curative treatments and focus more on comfort and supportive care in their journey. We'll talk about bereavement support in a little bit, but I will tell you as time goes along and they enter hospice services, anticipatory bereavement support is available for those that are on hospice care because that becomes a very tender, humble time that they're needing help. We've received permission to share this story and I'm honored to share it with you. I want to tell you a quick story about this picture. This is one of our volunteers and one of our patients who were able to connect together as a result of the desire for the patient to receive companionship services. And you'll notice her four-legged best friend is in the picture. They were able to bond through their commonalities. And as the journey began where this patient was living at home and needed assisted living help, she also worried about her dog. And through the bonding that this volunteer and this patient did, she was able to still see her pet as the volunteer began being the surrogate mommy for the pet. And she was able to take the pet to go see her real mommy in the assisted living. This lets you know that sometimes people say that hospice care is a place, and it is. It's a place of rest. That was not giving her rest to think that she may have to relocate and not have the peace of knowing that her dog was taken care of. So hospice care really is a team approach to address the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs of a person diagnosed with a life-limiting condition. When curative measures have stopped and the person desires comfort, primarily in the place where they call home. Her home was changing, but she needed a place of rest to make sure her pet was taken care of. Hospice care is provided where that person lives. So in this situation, the transition went from home to assisted living. Or it may be that she needed an inpatient unit, which is a hospice house where short-term care is delivered by an expert team of professionals to provide that symptom control, the rest, and end-of-life care. So oftentimes you will hear people say a person is in hospice, and that's kind of a wrong terminology. Hospice is a service that's provided with the patient to help them with their philosophy of care, of quality of life. It certainly can be at a place, but it is also a philosophy of care where we're serving the patient with hospice services. I hope that helps make sense on that little grammar lesson. There are some hospice admission criteria, whereas with palliative medicine, you found that persons can get those services at the point of diagnoses. On this, the patient has made the desire for care oriented towards comfort versus curative treatments. And they're wanting more of a home-like setting versus going back and forth to the hospital. There does need to be a physician's order for a hospice evaluation or admission, but anyone can make a referral for hospice services. The provider would need to say in his or her best clinical judgment that person has 6 months or less of life expectancy if the disease runs its normal course. Oftentimes, patients may ask their doctor, would you be surprised if I or she or he were alive in a year? This helps begin that discussion of when hospice care would be appropriate. And there would need to be a certification of terminal illness by 2 physicians. And hospice serves more than just patients with cancer. If you'll notice this list, and I won't read them out, there's a multitude of illnesses and diseases that individuals may have when they may be hospice eligible. This is, of course, not an exhaustive list, but it is some of the common things that we may see, although there are many more. Just as I used a visual aid of the wagon wheel to help us understand what palliative medicine looks like, I am going to use the pinwheel now to be able to share with you all about hospice services. This is the picture I want you to see with hospice care services. What you're going to see is in the center is the patient, just like with palliative medicine. But there are the petals are the interdisciplinary team that works with hospice care services. We're going to go over those in a minute, but what I want you to notice is they are not in silo. They wrap around that patient. There's no gap, and they all work together to focus on not just what is the matter with the body of the patient, but also what matters to them in body, mind, and spirit. So keep this pinwheel in mind because I'm going to move over to this to help us better understand it. You'll see that at the very top, there's the physicians and the nursing team. What you're going to find is that is where the focus is on the body. So there may be education on their illness for the patient and the caregiver to understand the trajectory of where they are with the hospice care services. We then know that the nursing team is important to come in and to not only educate with those, but to provide comfort because we want that clarity of what's going on with the illness, but we also want that comfort in the care. So, for example, we have a certified nursing assistant that is able to come and be able to help with things such as personal care on a periodic basis. Imagine a time when you've really needed a bath. If I just got a good bath, I would just feel really good. The caregivers also need a break during that time. They're the ones that are caring for their loved one. So that certified nursing assistant is able to bring that comfort and almost like a touch of comfort to that person to give them the comfort that they need. So that's focused on the body. The next 2 are focused on the mind. The social workers are able to work alongside the family to see what would make that person keep most comfortable at home. So they may be doing some referrals to the medical team for various things that they see that individual may need orders for. They may do referrals for outside community-based resources that will help that person. But they're also working with the patient and family on some of the mental things that may be experienced as they're going through end of life. We also have what we talked about with the bereavement counselors. The reality is when someone is facing end of life, there's that anticipation of that and how that can make them feel. The patient and the family can benefit from bereavement counseling services on that anticipatory death. So with that, you see the mind, the caregiver support, the patient support, and those types of things to bring that comfort and clarity and care. At the very bottom, you'll see the focus is more on the spirit with the chaplains and the volunteers. The chaplains, also called spiritual support, are there to be able to help with things like existential questions such as, does my life matter? Do they have some really hard questions about faith? And as Kim mentioned earlier, spiritual support can mean something different to every person depending on where they are in their spiritual journey. And then our volunteers help with the spirit of what matters to that person. Just as I told you about the patient whose dog was very important to them, but they needed to make a relocation. Sometimes people have things in their life that are very important to them. And that's what they talk about when this team comes out and that team says, "What are your goals this week?" It may be them talking about some passion that they have that's very important to them. And the volunteers are critical in making those things happen. We'll certainly talk more about spiritual support and the volunteers later, but just think about this and them caring for them in body, mind, and spirit so that they can continue living their best life in their journey with hospice. Kim, I'm honored that you have had such a long journey with hospice, and I know that you're going to give us some opportunity to hear some stories about why hospice means so much to people. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Now we have our hospice stories. So I want to tell you about Becky. Becky lived with dementia for over 10 years. Her husband, Joe, was very reluctant to allow hospice services because the word hospice meant facing the reality of what was happening to his wife of many decades. But he knew he needed some help. What followed was nearly 2 years of hospice care for Becky and her family. During that time, the relationship between Joe and the hospice staff grew so that they became a trusted part of Becky's care. Joe had a CNA to help him bathe Becky, a nurse who made medication adjustments and care suggestions that brought improved quality and comfort. There was a social worker who provided emotional support and a volunteer who sent cards in the mail for encouragement. Joe also allowed me to visit regularly and listen as he shared about his life with Becky. I got to see pictures and hear stories. Becky was no longer able to communicate, but she was able to be a part of the visit and listen to those memories as Joe shared them with me. Sometimes I provided communion, read familiar scripture passages, and prayed with them. Eventually, because of the trust Joe built with our hospice team, he was able to have some very important end-of-life conversations. He signed a do not resuscitate order for Becky, reflecting family wishes for no unnecessary extreme medical interventions when Becky neared end of life. He even found the strength to plan Becky's funeral with me before she died. Becky passed peacefully in bed at home beside her sweetheart. The hospice team was there for Joe and the family throughout the end of Becky's life, and then a bereavement counselor provided support for Joe throughout the next year. Our next two stories come with a picture. First, you will see Shirley, and then you'll see Ernest. These two individuals gave us a gift by allowing us to share with others about their hospice journey. Shirley, pictured with her family, was nearly 70 years old and lived at home independently. A sudden health decline left her in need of extra support. After being hospitalized for malnutrition and heart failure in the spring of 2024, Shirley was referred to Carolina Caring's Advanced Cardiac Program designed for patients with advanced heart failure. The prospect of having hospice frightened Shirley's daughters, but Shirley was open to that extra support. Even though her lifestyle has slowed down due to her condition, Shirley remains at home and tries to be as independent as possible. "I couldn't ask for better help," Shirley said. "It really feels like we're a team. These people are my self-motivators, helping me stay active, and their care encourages me to go further than I thought possible." And then we have Ernest, a World War II veteran. The Carolina Caring We Honor Veterans program recognizes those who have served in our military. In the picture, you see Ernest being saluted by a fellow veteran and hospice volunteer who stopped by to offer words of thank you from a grateful nation. It was such a heartwarming moment when these two service members from different generations connected with each other. Ernest was truly a unique and engaging person with an incredible journey and an incredible memory. He could recall minute details of his childhood, his time in the war, and his life when he got back home. Ernest had the attention of the room when he shared stories of his role in the U.S. Navy, which began after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He operated on the USS Chilton transport ship, which was regularly attacked by infamous kamikaze pilots. Providing care to meet Ernest's physical needs, giving him undivided attention as he shared about his remarkable life, and treating him with dignity and compassion were essential elements of quality hospice care for someone who could be considered a national treasure.
I'm so honored that you shared those stories with us. And as we promised, there might be some other stories that we would offer. I did not have this planned initially, but I felt prompted to share this. And so I'm going to go back to the picture of where we were talking about this patient. This is on our website, and you can find the poem later if you want. But this lady wrote poetry, and she was so thankful for what this volunteer did. And she wrote this poem called Why Be a Volunteer? And this will start our stage of talking about volunteers. It's not for the money nor the fame. It's for the enrichment in life you gain. And in enriching your life, you enhance the life of others, perhaps those with no children, no sisters or brothers. To be a volunteer, you need not show your face. Those who are behind the scene, we cannot replace. If you choose to work with the people who live here, your smiles will brighten their days, and your touch and will calm their fears. You are rest to the weary and strength for the weak. You hold the power of the gentle guidance they seek. For it is your time that is precious to you, that you give freely to others, which will pull them through. A life may appear far from grand, yet may find solace with the touch of your hand. You bring friendship to the lonely and smiles to the sad. You enrich the laughter of those who are glad. Your time is the most precious gift you can give, and it's with your time you help others to live. May God bless you for all your good deeds, for everything you do for those in need. Miss Bessie, we honor you for writing that poem and sharing it with us. So let's talk about the volunteer services. We could not do what we do with Carolina Caring Hospice without volunteers, and volunteers are a requirement through Medicare law for hospice care. And I can see why, because it makes such a difference. Really quickly, I'll share these stories that we've been honored to get permission from the patients and families to share. In the top left, we have a lady who the piece was the beach for her, but she was unable to make it back to the beach because of her fragile health condition. Our volunteers and team brought the beach to her back porch with sand, a lei, a mocktail, and a beach chair where she was able to dig her feet in the sand and feel the peace that she was wanting. The man in the top right had mentioned that his life was not expected to be this way. He wanted to marry his loved one, his fiance. We were able to bring the wedding to them, the ceremony of recognition, to our hospice house, where the medical team was able to care for him while our chaplain did the wedding marriage service, and they were able to have time with their family and join in this with what mattered most to them. Our little guy in the left-hand corner, you can tell he loved dinosaurs, and we had someone who was able to do some balloon art, and I almost wonder if this was not him being a dinosaur for the day as he was doing his great big roar in this. And then last but not least, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have someone who was in our hospice house that wanted to see his son graduate. With the team of volunteers and the school, they were able to bring the graduation ceremony so that he could see his son walk the stage. You may wonder what in the world would a giraffe and hospice to do with each other. We have had a little bit of glitches with the video, so I'm hoping that this works. If not, I will definitely share with you guys that you can Google this called Carolina Caring and Giraffe so you can hear it firsthand. But I want to share this video with you all now.
The word hospice usually evokes thoughts of sadness and death, but ideally it helps improve the quality of life for someone at the end of life. A Cherryville woman got a rare chance to make special memories her family will talk about for years to come. Queen City News storyteller John Lee explains in tonight's Faces of the Carolinas.
Once upon a time, there was a girl who really loved giraffes.
I fell in love with that animal.
They're Debbie Zerbergen's spirit animals. No matter what the occasion, daughter Beth knows exactly what to buy for her mother.
Giraffes have always been her thing.
She's adored them since middle school. I mean, there's even a giraffe on her phone.
You got boys texting you or something?
That don't even deserve a comment.
She's a very strong woman, very sassy, feisty.
I heard that.
While she's got spunk to spare, Debbie and her loved ones are coming to terms with the beginning of the end.
She came home from the hospital July 4th with end-stage heart failure.
One doctor feared Debbie was unlikely to even live past September. She receives hospice care at home, surrounded by images of her favorite gentle giants.
You're a special woman. How have you been feeling?
Rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mostly your stomach.
Carly Phelps is a social worker for Carolina Caring.
She said that her final wish would be to feed a giraffe in person. And when I heard that, it just stuck out to me.
Carly reached out to the Carolina Caring Foundation, and that paved the way for a dream encounter at the North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro.
This has been on my bucket list since 7th grade.
The foundation arranged for her to feed a giraffe, also inviting family and nursing staff to experience it with her. Look at that big smile right before the long-awaited moment.
We went up onto the giraffe deck. Her face was just pure joy, really. And all of us just knew how much that meant to her.
I'm actually getting to do this. And then when I turned, and there it was, I just bursted out tears.
She was in awe, face to face with Jack.
And then I feed them. You're not supposed to touch them. I touched it.
And she loved every second.
What did it feel like?
I felt the side of its tongue sticky, and then I felt the side of its face. It's like a dog fur.
There wasn't a dry eye in that part of the zoo. It was an emotional day for everyone.
Everybody was crying. Not sad tears, it was happy tears.
I'll carry this day in my heart forever.
Experts now say Debbie's life expectancy is a matter of months. We can only hope they're wrong again.
Oh, my family, now you'll get me crying.
She's so thankful for the herd that's been by her side.
I don't know how people do this without having family. I don't know how they do it.
That was like our last big family outing.
They're beautiful.
Even at the end of life, she finds the joy in life. Pictures remind Debbie of one of the greatest days ever.
Oh, and they got me a giraffe cake.
In Cherryville, John Lee, Queen City News.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your...
Okay, sorry about that at the very end. I have watched that video multiple times, and there's never a time that I don't start getting teared up, because this is the passion of why we see how palliative and hospice can make such a difference on focusing on what matters to the person. As promised, I have said that we would go back to this. You've seen where palliative is focused on curative focuses while it's still giving that comfort, clarity, and care support to the person. As time goes along, the palliative focus or comfort focus comes along with them. We then can go into the journey of hospice when that person is at 6 months or less life expectancy, and that team is able to come along and support them. During that time, the bereavement team is able to come alongside with anticipatory needs. But as the person's hospice care journey ends, we do not leave that patient or patient's family alone. We are able to come alongside them and support them for the next 13 months. Think about it. Maybe Valentine's Day is coming up, or special anniversary, birthday. The holidays are coming up. That first year is critical in helping that person go through that journey of bereavement and loss. And that year anniversary is also very important. So this is why we follow them for 13 months and support them in that journey. We're going to now turn to the fact that we're aware that some people have some ideas of hospice that may not be accurate. So Kim, you and I are going to really talk about some hard questions that sometimes we get and we're going to play a little bit of a game with this called the myths of hospice together. Okay. So what I want to know, Kim, is I have heard that hospice care is expensive. Is it a myth or is that a fact?
Well, that is a myth. Most hospices accept payments from Medicare, Medicaid, and other insurance plans.
All right. Well, I've always heard that only a doctor can refer a patient for hospice care. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That is a myth. Anyone can make a referral for hospice. A medical provider must submit a doctor's order for the assessment.
Okay. So even as a neighbor or a friend, we can make that call.
Yes.
Okay. I've also heard that once a patient is enrolled in hospice, there's no turning back. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That is a myth.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do
That's
that.
okay. That's a myth. A patient can stop hospice care at any time and for any reason.
That's good to know. So people don't have to go to hospice houses to receive hospice care. Is that a myth or a fact?
That's a fact. Most hospices provide care where a patient feels most comfortable. That might be in their own home, in the nursing home or assisted living facility where they reside. They could be in the hospital, but they also might be at one of our hospice houses.
So that makes sense where sometimes people say they're in hospice. They may be in a hospice house, but they're actually receiving services with hospice wherever they call home. I see where that could have been confusing. Now, I have heard that hospice is for people who only have just a few days to live and no hope. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That is definitely a myth. The focus isn't on a cure anymore. It begins to be on the caring. Patients, with the help of their families and the hospice staff, can choose exactly how they want to live with their illness.
Okay. So you talked about that a little bit, where individuals may be on hospice longer than that 6 months. So that sometimes happens. And there are some people that are on hospice just, I guess, for a few hours.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I've also heard that there are times that people can graduate from hospice because their condition improves, that they don't qualify for hospice any longer.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes there's a referral made back to palliative care if the person's condition changes and they're no longer considered terminally ill.
Wow. There's a lot of variations in that. And I would say most people we do serve have that 6 months or less life expectancy, but that's not always a definite.
Right.
Okay. That's good to know. Now, I've heard that hospice care requires a patient to stop taking all medications. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That is a myth. It's taken on a case-by-case basis. A medication may be stopped if it causes discomfort or is no longer effective. Each choice is made with the patient and family as part of the decision-making process.
Okay, so case by case, that makes sense. Now, I've heard that hospice depends on sedation as a major way to manage patients' pain. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That is actually a myth. For patients with chronic pain, medication is started at low doses. Pain management is only increased if the patient is still hurting and wishes to increase dosages. And just a side note, pain is managed with a holistic approach. When a person is in pain, suffering may take place due to psychosocial or spiritual struggle. A person's suffering may be decreased by assisting with issues like reconciliation needs, existential uncertainty, lack of meaning, a need for forgiveness, or other spiritual emotional concerns. Pain medication can certainly be a part of the picture, but always in consultation with and respect for the preference of the patient and family.
Is this a myth or a fact that all hospices are different?
That's a fact. Every hospice is independently owned. As a result, hospices vary in the services that they can offer to patients and families. Individuals are encouraged to choose the hospice that provides them the highest quality of care, regardless of where they live.
So that sounds like that's similar to palliative medicine. People have that right to choose whichever program that they are wanting with palliative care or hospice. Okay, that makes sense. Now, I've heard that hospice does not replace the family in caregiving. Is that a myth or a fact?
That is a fact. Hospice does not remove family members as caregivers or decision makers. Rather, hospice adds another layer of support for both patients and families, offering them a team devoted to their physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
That's great to know. Well, we are actually close to the end. I wanted to make sure you guys get out your phones just to take a picture of these two sheets. Some of you may have heard about some of the things that we talked about, and we do have learning sessions available and on other topics that I'm happy to provide. You're welcome to reach out to me on that or any of these. But if you, right now, we recognize that people may have questions that they have. So I do want you, when you get out your phone, to go ahead and take a picture of this. This is my contact information. If you have questions about learning sessions or more about this that come up in the days, weeks, and months and years to come of understanding the difference between hospice and palliative medicine, I am happy to help you with that. If you need to be connected to Kim to ask some questions, I can certainly get you connected with her. But this gives us an opportunity right now to be able to take some time for some questions. I know that I would like to take maybe 10 to 15 minutes because I want to give you guys an opportunity at the end and you may go ahead and do this if you want while people are asking questions. I would be honored if you would put in the chat the answers to these questions. When you hear the word hospice now, what comes to your mind? And when you hear the word palliative, what comes to mind? Just maybe put hospice and then what comes to your mind, and then palliative and what comes to your mind. I'll go back to this area right here so you can take a picture of that in case you have questions later. But I'm going to turn it back over to Caitlin so she can help us monitor the questions that we have.
I'm looking in here. I know people are kind of answering the questions about what the definition of hospice and palliative care are. So if you guys have like a specific question as well, go ahead and throw that in and I'll be looking. I see a request again for the resource page. I think that somebody wants to take a picture.
Yes, I will go ahead and do that right now. There you go. Do you want me to go ahead and start looking at some of the questions, or
I'm just starting to see some of them come in that are outside of the answer. So I see one that says, can a person with no insurance privately pay for your services?
I love how that always comes up, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Every hospice organization is different, and every palliative medicine is different. So I want to make sure that I just kind of answer for that. And then these would be encouraged to be questions to ask from your individual providers that you choose. With our hospice care, we never turn anybody away as a result of cost of care. End of life should be quality of life for someone. And so that is very important to us. But we also have opportunities for all kinds of other insurances that will accept hospice services. And then we do have the ability for self-pay if that is something that someone would be able to do. But we're very excited to be able to offer those services without that being the burden that someone has to worry about. We want them to worry about what's important to them, not how they're going to be able to pay for that. Palliative medicine is a specialty service, so however they would pay for those services from a specialty is how that they would pay for the palliative medicine.
Amanda, we have a few questions in the question and answers which aren't showing up in the chat. And one of them is, does palliative care or hospice care assist for people with dementia?
Correct. Yes. So dementia is very common. Our palliative medicine program, we actually have a dementia care program that is designed to go along with helping support the caregiver with resources and support during that journey. At the point of a dementia diagnosis, palliative medicine may be a very, very good option for people to help that have that extra level of support. I won't go into a lot of details with this, but we are also an active part of the GUIDE program that's part of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. But you will have, I'm going to go ahead and go back to this. If you have more questions about that, I'm happy to answer more in detail about that. But dementia is something that is very, very common, that Kim is even nodding her head. I don't know if you can see her, that we really go through that.
And just remind you of the story of Joe and Becky. Becky happened to have dementia, and we were part of their journey for quite a while.
I hope that's very helpful.
The other question that was in the question and answer section is, do you ever suggest people listen to Hospice Care Julie on YouTube?
And so I do not want to comment on any kind of presentations that's especially since I've never looked at her stuff, and I would not be comfortable answering that question, but I'm going to jot down that just so I can know. Did you say that was Hospice Care Julie? And I apologize.
That's what I heard.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, but no, I wouldn't want to comment on any commentaries, especially since I am not familiar.
Yeah, and it was available on YouTube, so you would know.
Okay.
That.
I see another one. It says, if someone has an advance directive or is capable of speaking for themselves at the beginning, do you honor their wishes if not in sync with the family?
Do you mind taking a stab at that question?
I think that would be on a case-by-case basis. We always want to honor the wishes of the patient. And so conversations would happen all along the way, I think, to try to help patient and family be on the same page. But we definitely pay attention to those advanced care directives.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm seeing some like Medicare questions. So like if
Okay.
a patient's Medicare pays, does their supplemental insurance also pay?
So those would be questions that we would look at a person on an individual basis. When we're talking about Medicare, there's so many dynamics of traditional Medicare, Medicare Advantage plans, and those types of things. So those would be worked on a case-by-case basis. I would hate to make a general kind of statement on that when all of those things are such individualized.
And Amanda, we've had a lot of requests for the PowerPoint. Would you like to address that?
Yes, I am honored that you all want that PowerPoint. Unfortunately, I would not be able to share that with you all, although we've gotten permission to share the pictures of our patients and those types of things. I'm not comfortable with sharing the PowerPoint, but anytime you want to watch the video will be available on the Centralina website.
And then I see another question. So, when receiving hospice services, does the hospice team oversee care or become the primary versus the primary care physician and their current doctor? And it says, does the same go for palliative care? It's kind of, does the hospice team become the primary team or do they still have a primary care physician?
So I'm going to start with the palliative medicine. So palliative medicine does not replace the primary care or the specialists. We just are coming alongside that person as a consultative service. So they're still working alongside their primary care and their specialist. Would you like to do the hospice so then it kind of shows a distinction? So I just talked about palliative. I'm going to let her talk about the hospice.
So at the point when a person becomes a hospice patient, the hospice care team becomes primary. Sometimes folks want to keep their primary care physician, and that primary care physician would work along with the hospice provider. But things shift a little whenever the person becomes hospice.
Does that make sense? Okay.
It really is a matter of the patient and family choice.
Yes, so I think that did make sense.
And one thing I will mention, that we do have a website and ebook that kind of helped talk through some of those things as well.
There was a question about can you download the ebook from your website, guiding you through the unexpected?
So on our website, we do have an ebook that you're able to put in your email address, and that just allows them to know that someone's requesting it, and then you would immediately download it from there. And thank you guys for taking an opportunity to look at that. One of the things that Kim and I were talking about earlier is that there is an excellent resource on our our Carolina Caring website that really navigates through the difference between palliative care and hospice as it relates to a cancer diagnosis. And we found that that was very helpful too. There's a lot of good resources on our website. We would encourage you to look at that as well, just to get some education.
There was a question, since the general presentation is not available, if you'd be willing to share or make available the slides about the differences between the services. They felt that those had great information. Or if there was a resource available on your website that might address that component.
Yeah, so our website certainly would be able to do that. I will work alongside Centralina to find an option for that so that they can send it out. That would be great. That's a good idea. I was just trying to think through the best way to do that. So we can definitely make that available. And I will say that our ebook definitely has some of that information.
I see a hospice house question. So it says, does the patient live at the hospice house, or is the house for like strictly for somebody who's in a transitioning stage?
That's a good question. Do you want to take that question?
So our hospice house is utilized for several different reasons. First, it can be used as a respite resource. Hospice patients are eligible for respite care, which means a break for the caregiver, and that can be for up to 5 nights, and that is decided on a case-by-case basis according to availability at the hospice house. The next reason would be for symptom management. So if the nursing team, patient family are having difficulty getting a person's symptoms managed at home, a person can be transferred to the hospice house to help them get comfortable. That may have to do with something like pain, stomach upset, things related to the diagnosis that they're having difficulty managing at home. And so as soon as that symptom is under control, then the person would go back home. And then at times there is a need for a person to come to the hospice house for end of life care and support, but that is also mostly related to being able to not being able to manage the person's symptoms at home.
Okay. Anything else? We're happy
So
to.
I see one that says, can you serve all U.S. states? And I know that that's not your service area, but maybe some information on how people can.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we just serve the 12 counties that are around Central Lina, and I can go over those again if there's needed. But hospice is a philosophy of care that is in the United States, and most all U.S. states, counties, and those types of things would have some hospice providers. On the Medicare site, they actually would have a listing of those in different states. But we're also willing, if you have somebody that is in another state and you need to find maybe a listing of that, I don't mind you reaching out to me and I can figure out the best way to do that. But most US states, I have never heard of a US state at all ever not having hospice services. So that is a federal program that's covered by Medicare. So I would imagine that it would be in all US states. I did see a question that just came up just by chance that my chat hit. It says if a person is ill and has no PCP or family to speak for them, who would provide the care? If someone is ill and has no PCP, then there is a home-based primary care program that we offer that if someone is finding it too taxing to get back and forth to their primary care, that could be an option. As far as having a family member to speak for them, that would be a question maybe. Do you have any kind of guidance on that? That would definitely be a little bit more. Let's dive deeper into that, because when I hear someone doesn't have someone to speak for them, that's a whole nother can of worms that might need a little bit more depth.
Yeah, I think that's a time when I wish I was a social worker. They would be the person to go to in a situation like that to try to find support for that individual, perhaps a guardian. So we would have to look to a social worker for that one.
Okay. Any other questions that have come up? I'm trying my best to look at the chat, but I'm struggling.
Let's see. Can you explain deeper? Oop, and now it's moving. Deeper how care may be provided for individuals in a long-term care facility.
Yeah, so long-term care facilities, that is a question where people can receive hospice care in a long-term care facility, and I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but hospices are contracted providers. Hospice providers are contracted providers for long-term care facilities. So those two would be on a case-by-case basis on how they're able to receive their care and who would be receiving care and from what provider based on the long-term care facilities that are chosen and the family choosing their hospice provider. But yes, you can receive hospice care in a long-term care facility. Another caveat of that may be helpful is when someone is in hospice care, there is a respite component to that, and we often contract with long-term care facilities to offer that respite care for someone.
And I'll just add to that, whenever a person's in a nursing home, our nursing staff, the social worker, the chaplain work alongside the caregivers at the facility. They go hand in hand and talk about the patient's needs and work alongside the family to make sure those needs are met. So the entire team from the facility and the hospice team come together to provide that support.
Sorry, Amanda, there's one question here. It's an interesting question. Will hospice services partner or work with a patient who has already made arrangements with an assisted suicide program? And what does this look like for a patient?
I do not know the answer to that question. Do you have any knowledge of that either?
No.
I do not know the answer to that question. And I don't want to misspeak, but North Carolina, to my knowledge, has no component of that. So that is not something that and I don't have a comfort level on answering that question, and I apologize, but it is a very good question to explore.
I saw two people ask if hospice patients can be organ donors.
I'm trying to remember in my years if that has ever been the case, and I'm not sure. I do know that at times we have had people who've made a promise to donate their body to science, and we try to work alongside families to help that wish happen. But I don't know about the organ donation. I think it would depend on the particular illness and each individual situation.
And maybe the ability for that organ to still be utilized based in the course of their illness. And then, so it sounds like that would be a case by case basis too.
But we would, of course, support the patient and family and what they wanted to try to do.
They may be able and willing to, they may be willing to do that, but would they be able to continue that process? Not from our standpoint, but maybe from the individuals that would accept the organs.
Those are the last questions I've seen come through. Cindy, unless you see anything else, right at 11:30, we're right on time.
That got all the, we don't have any in the question and answer section. So
I hope this has been helpful for everybody. Like I said, you could have been anywhere for the last hour and a half of your life, but you've chosen to learn about a topic that can be so sensitive, but so vitally important, because each of us have no knowledge of what's going to happen in the days and months and years to come. Palliative medicine and hospice care can bring that comfort, clarity, and care for those that we serve. We're honored to be able to be a partner in the community, to be able to help you understand these two different service programs.
And Amanda, thank you both so much for the presentation and the sponsorship of the presentation.
We're more than honored to be able to serve, and we thank you for that.
Oh, no, we're very glad that to be able to partner with you. So thank you so much for that support. It allows us to be able to bring these webinars to the public, and we truly appreciate that. Great presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. There you are, Kim. Bye, Kim.
In the webinar quite yet. You can stop the recording, but just please don't end it.
Sure.